able to just do that right away. Then the question becomes, what do you do with the commodities that you've purchased? And, you know, some people have suggested, well, you sort of put them back in the market. Well, the problem with that is that that sort of depresses the market further. So you have to figure, well, you can't do that. What do you do with them? And so we're in the process of trying to figure out precisely how we allocate those surplus commodities among our school nutrition programs to maybe increase school nutrition opportunities. Or maybe we take a look at food banks that are stressed because of the difficult times, figure out ways in which we can provide that opportunity. We get some pushback from some folks if we're, you know, if we're putting a lot of butter into those programs, we get a little pushback from them, and so we have to deal with that issue. Then we say, well, okay, so we're doing that. What about the rest of the world? The EU is currently changing the way they subsidize their dairy farmers. Doesn't that mean that we ought to be doing the same for our dairy farmers? And as soon as you start down that road, you get folks from Australia and New Zealand coming in and saying, well, wait a second, you know, this is free trade, and you know, we need to be careful about this. So it's a little bit dicey. You have to work with a trade representative. You have to work with the State Department on that aspect of it. And then the issue is, well, what about the fact that we got surplus herd? How do we do that? Well, I have to compliment the dairy industry, because you all have figured out that you don't want to do what you've done in the past, which is to put those cows on the market all at one time, because that depresses the cattle market. So what you're doing is that you've created this program which provides some degree of assistance in terms of loans and allowing people to gradually reduce the herd. I suspect that we will see that. We'll see that over the course of 2008. But I will take back your concerns about the future. Time again, yeah, it's a cyclical thing. Got it.
We have time for one more question.
See, that's why I want him to do this.
Joaquin.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here. I'm a dairy farmer out of California. This last year in 08, we had a consumption increase of 2.6%. The milk production increased 1.4%. The price dropped 50+% right now. My last milk check was $9.09. We have a situation that we've had for many, many years on the milk proteins issue of product coming in the United States, that in 1993, during the Uruguay round, they left the milk proteins out of the TRQs. So there's no TRQs on those proteins. They're kind of like the wild card that's out there on the world market. And so if the world market starts to crash, those proteins go to the best market in the world, which is the United States. We're the largest market. The industry is so consolidated that at the end of the day, even though you may ship to a particular entity, at the end of the day, your milk will wind up in the hands of basically 3 or 4 people. Dean Foods, Kraft, Jimmy Loprino, and then Fonterra does most of the exports for the co-ops. So it's so consolidated that the CME, which all the milk prices are based off the CME, there's a direct correlation with the Class 3 and the CME price. So if we don't adjust the way we price milk, if we don't deal with these milk proteins that we've been trying to deal with for years, and Congress has always said, if you guys get together on one issue and get behind it, we can do it. We were all together. We had National Milk, we had everybody on putting some TRQs on imported proteins, and it never happened. So do you think we can maybe pick up on some of these issues? Thank you.
Well, first of all, just a comment about the international situation. There are multiple reasons why we're faced with this dilemma today that do indeed relate to the international circumstance. We had some of our traditional purchasers of milk who have decided to reduce their purchases because of struggling economies. Russia comes to mind. We had the situation in China that created some difficulty and some confusion and some lack of confidence in milk generally. We had better than anticipated yields in Australia and New Zealand, which complicate the issue. So all of these things come into play, and the EU steps in, subsidizes their dairy folks, and now we're confronted with what do we do for our folks. And it is interesting to see that I got visits from both the Australian ambassador and the New Zealand ambassador within a week of us even talking about the notion that we would be looking at additional export assistance. And we don't have a trade representative yet, which complicates things. And the State Department weighs in, believe it or not, on these issues. So the ability to deal forcefully on the international scene is more complicated than the capacity that USDA has to sort of impact the domestic situation. I must admit that I don't know everything I need to know about what about this particular issue. You know, as Tom said, we still don't have pictures on the walls, and I have a tremendous amount of learning I have to do. But I do understand and appreciate the problem. I do understand that there has to be some degree of certainty, that there has to be, government has to be able to react more quickly than it has. I don't know how to do that yet, but I am committed to trying to find a way to do it.